Okay, let's dive into something really quite incredible today. Picture this. A usually quiet village square, but instead of market day bustle, it's filled with cheers. Firecrackers even.
Yeah, not for a festival, not for a cricket match. This was something much deeper.
Exactly. Pure, unadulterated justice. We're talking July 3rd, 2025, about quarter to 11 in the morning, Indian Standard Time, a place called Talakondapally in Telangana's Rangareddy district. And our deep dive today, it's all about that specific moment, that explosion of relief, and how this community basically said, enough is enough to systemic corruption.
And what's really key here, I think, is that this wasn't just random chance, this celebration. It was the direct result of a very carefully planned operation by the Anti-Corruption Bureau.
BACB.
Right. They targeted this specific official, B Nagarjuna. He was the Mandal Revenue Officer, the MRO. Now, for anyone listening who isn't familiar, the MRO is a pretty central figure in local government there.
Deals with all the land records, revenue stuff, crucial documents people need day to day.
Precisely. He holds a lot of power locally. And he was caught, quite literally, red-handed, taking a bribe.
Wow.
So the story, it really digs into how these systemic issues, allow this kind of thing, but also how it often takes just one person's courage to spark something much bigger. Collective action, real accountability. It shows it is possible.
And what a symbol it became. We were looking into the immediate aftermath right after the arrest. And the descriptions people gave, just this wave of sound, cheers, firecrackers, this palpable sense of relief.
We could almost feel it through the reports.
Totally. For the people there in Talakondapally, this wasn't just, another news item. This felt personal, like a victory against the system they felt had been, bleeding them dry. One local farmer, Ravi, he put it so well. He said it was like Diwali, the festival of lights. But instead of celebrating light, we were celebrating justice.
That really captures it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The depth of feeling.
It really does. It says so much about what they'd been putting up with.
Absolutely. And, to understand how they got to that moment of celebration, we need to look at the ACB operation itself. It was pretty much a textbook takedown.
Led by DSP Ramesh Kumar, right?
That's right. He headed the operation, and crucially, they were acting on a tip-off. Someone had come forward.
Gutsy move.
Very. So they set the trap, and the moment came, Nagarjuna was caught taking 10,000 rupees, marked currency notes, the whole thing.
And this wasn't just for some minor favor, was it?
No. This was specifically for registering 22 guntas of agricultural land. Now, for context, a gunta is a local land measurement unit down there.
About what, just over 1,000 square feet?
Yeah, roughly 1,089 square feet.
Yeah.
So 22 guntas, you're looking at about half an acre. That's a significant plot for a farmer.
So that 10,000 rupees, that was a serious demand for just doing his job.
A very serious direct burden.
Yeah.
And the clincher, the whole exchange, the handover of the money, it was all caught on video.
Oh, wow. So no wiggle room there.
None whatsoever. Left absolutely no space for denial. Crystal clear evidence.
That video must have been damning. But, beyond the mechanics of the arrest, it's the stories from the people, the human cost, that really shows what years of this does.
That's where it really hits home.
Yeah, because this wasn't just a one-off bad day for Nagarjuna. For the villagers, this was like years of pent-up frustration just exploding.
Right.
We heard about Santhosh, a farmer just trying to sell his own land. Nagarjuna apparently first asked for 10 lakh rupees. 10 lakh.
Unbelievable. That's over 10,000 US dollars just to process paperwork for land he already owned.
It's staggering. Santhosh somehow negotiated it down to 2 lakh. Still a huge amount. But listen to what he said. It's powerful. I felt like I was buying my own land back from the government.
Gosh, buying your own land back, that says everything about the feeling of powerlessness, doesn't it?
It really does. And sadly, his story wasn't unique, was it?
Not at all. We heard from another person, Jayanth. He had to cough up 25,000 rupees just to register 2 guntas. A tiny piece of land.
25,000 for 2 guntas.
Oh. Yeah, and his comment was just dripping with sarcasm. He said, "At this rate, I should have just framed the receipt as a trophy for surviving bureaucracy."
Huh. You have to laugh, I guess, or you'd cry.
Pretty much. And then there was Lakshmi, a shopkeeper, 5,000 rupees just for a simple document verification.
Something routine.
Completely routine. Her comment was sharp too. Who knew government services came with a tip jar?
Ouch. It paints a picture of it being just expected.
Absolutely expected. And Uppala Venkatesh, he's a former local council member, a ZPTC member. He told us he knew personally of at least 50 similar cases, just involving this one MRO.
50 cases. That's not just corruption. That's like an enterprise.
It paints a really grim picture. Systematic extortion, basically.
And that leads to maybe the most infuriating detail we found. This alleged rate card.
Ah, yes, the rate card.
It wasn't just random demands. People described it like a menu at some dodgy restaurant. Fixed prices for everything.
Yeah, $10,000 for land registration, $5,000 for this certificate, another amount for that.
Just laid out. Robbie, the farmer we mentioned earlier, he joked, it was like he was running a fast food joint, except instead of fries, you got a stamped document if you paid the right price.
It's a darkly funny comparison, but it highlights how systematic it was. This wasn't just inefficiency or someone having a bad day. It was turning a public service office into a personal profit center.
Yeah, pure exploitation.
And that's where you see the real burden, financial and emotional. For farmers, already dealing with unpredictable weather, rising costs for seeds, fertilizer, these bribes were just cruel.
An extra tax they couldn't afford.
Exactly. That 2 lakh rupees Santhosh paid, that could have bought seeds, maybe fertilizer for seasons, maybe even helped towards a small tractor or equipment.
Life-changing money for many.
Absolutely. Or Jayanth's 25,000 that could easily be a month's income, just gone. Poof. For routine paperwork.
And beyond the money, the sheer frustration.
Oh, the emotional toll. Immense. The frustration, the humiliation of basically having to beg, to bribe for services that are supposed to be your right.
It just grinds you down.
And it completely erodes any trust you might have had in the government, in the system. And delays were used as weapons, right? Files would just get stuck.
Mysteriously lost on a desk somewhere.
Until tea money was paid. That was the euphemism. Jayanth, again with the sarcasm, he said, they call it tea money, but maybe they're brewing gold instead.
Brewing gold. It shows just how blatant and normalized it had become.
Depressingly so.
Which, I guess, brings us to the next startling piece. Nagarjuna's alleged wealth.
Right. The scale of it.
We heard that in just 6 months on the job as MRO, he supposedly accumulated crores. That's millions of rupees.
In 6 months. On a government salary.
It just doesn't add up, does it? A local tailor apparently joked, does he have a secret gold mine under his desk?
You can see why people would say that. The numbers just seem impossible otherwise.
So now, understandably, people are demanding a full investigation into his assets. There are rumors, high-end cars, properties, things way beyond what his official salary could ever cover.
And that demand for a wider probe is crucial. Because this case, shocking as it is, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It really needs to be seen as part of a larger pattern in Telangana.
The ACB's own data suggests that, right?
Absolutely. Look at their figures just for the first half of 2025. By June, they had already filed 126 cases. 80 of those were trap cases, like Nagarjuna's.
80 successful stings by June.
Yeah. And through those, they seized nearly 25 lakh rupees in bribe money. But get this. Across just 8 separate investigations into disproportionate assets, they unearthed assets worth over 27 crore rupees. That's huge.
It's 27 crore.
Yeah.
Just from 8 cases.
Yeah. And compare that to the previous year, 2024. For the entire year, there were 152 cases in total. So the 2025 numbers suggest, well, maybe 2 things.
More corruption happening. Or better enforcement catching it.
Possibly both. A worrying rise in corruption, but also maybe a more proactive response from the ACB.
And it's not just recent data pointing to this problem. We found a study from back in 2019.
The Youth for Anti-Corruption one.
That's the one. They surveyed over 21,000 people in Telangana. And a staggering 90% believed corruption was rampant.
90%.
And guess which departments topped their list of concerns?
Let me guess. Revenue and police.
Bingo. Revenue and police, and specifically for the Revenue Department, cases reportedly spiked by 45% just in that year, 2019. So this isn't a new issue.
No, it certainly isn't. And it lines up with broader reports, too. Transparency International, back in 2020, found India had the highest bribery rate in Asia.
Highest in Asia.
Yeah. 39% of people said they used personal connections to get services, and 32% admitted to paying bribes.
That's nearly a third paying bribes just for basic public services.
Exactly. And if you ask why the Revenue Department keeps popping up as a major hotspot, well, it makes a grim kind of sense.
Because of the power they hold.
Precisely. MROs, tahsildars, they control access to absolutely critical documents. Land titles, property records, caste certificates, income certificates, things people desperately need.
Gatekeepers for essentials.
They really are. And that power, unfortunately, creates opportunities, fertile ground for extortion, if someone's inclined that way. Remember that cynical farmer's quote?
The one about the paper jungle.
Yeah. Every time you need a paper, they act like they're doing you a favor. Pay up, or your file gets lost in the great paper jungle. That sums up the experience for so many.
The great paper jungle. It really paints a picture, doesn't it? For ordinary folks, trying to get anything done feels like navigating a maze designed to trip you up.
Or designed to make you pay at every turn. Like Lakshmi, the shopkeeper, said, you go in with hope, you leave with an empty wallet.
Yeah. Things that should be simple, routine, registering a small plot, getting a certificate for your child's school, updating a record, they become these expensive nightmares.
And it hits hardest in places like Talakondapally, rural areas where incomes are often tight and every rupee matters. Farmers already juggling debt, weather.
The last thing they need is an official with their hand out.
Absolutely. It just squeezes them further.
So where do we go from here? What's the path forward?
Well, a huge piece of this puzzle, highlighted by the Talakondapally case, is the person who made the initial complaint, the whistleblower.
Right, the courageous complainant.
Their bravery really shows the power of individual citizens taking action. Like Venkatesh, the former council member, said, one person's complaint sparked this change.
But it takes guts, because there's fear, right? Fear of backlash.
Absolutely. Fear of reprisal is huge. Losing your job, facing harassment, maybe worse. It stops a lot of people from speaking up, which is exactly why strong whistleblower protections are so incredibly important.
People need to feel safe reporting this stuff.
They have to, otherwise the system protects itself.
And the ACB, the Anti-Corruption Bureau, they're the main force fighting this in Telangana.
They are. They operate under the Prevention of Corruption Act. It's a 1988 law. Their job is sting operations, investigations, promoting ethical standards.
And those 2025 numbers we talked about, the cases, the seized money, the assets, they show the ACB is active. They are making arrests.
Definitely. And they actively encourage people to report. They have a toll-free number, 1064, and a WhatsApp number too, 9440446-106. They promise anonymity.
That's crucial, the anonymity.
Vital. To protect the complainants. DSP Ramesh Kumar, the officer who led the Talakondapally sting, he really stressed public cooperation. He said, without citizens coming forward, we can't catch these officials. Trap cases need evidence, and that starts with someone being willing to report it.
Makes sense.
But, while the ACB has methods traps, surprise checks, digging into assets, like with Nagarjuna, they face big challenges too.
Like what?
While understaffing is often an issue, legal loopholes that let cases just drag on for years, and honestly, just the sheer volume of complaints they have to deal with.
Overwhelmed.
Pretty much. We heard from one official, anonymously, of course, who described it like this. We're like doctors in a hospital, overflowing with patients. We treat what we can, but the disease keeps spreading.
That's a stark image. Treating symptoms, maybe, but the underlying disease?
Exactly. Which raises the question, are individual arrests, like Nagarjuna's, enough? Are they a real deterrent or just reactive?
Yeah, that's the core question, isn't it? Because catching one person, even if it sparks celebration like in Talakondapally, feels like, well, like you said, treating a symptom. The system itself seems broken.
Right. We found that the very structure, the complexity, the amount of discretion officials have in the revenue department, it almost seems designed to allow this.
Like that farmer joked, designed to make you pay.
Add weak oversight, maybe audits that aren't thorough enough, and this culture where it feels like there are no consequences, it just festers.
We even heard from a retired MRO who basically admitted off the record, you either join the game or get sidelined.
Wow. That implies pressure to conform even if you don't want to.
Yeah. So it really points towards needing bigger changes, right? Systemic reforms, not just catching individual bad apples.
Absolutely. We looked into what those reforms could involve. Several key areas came up again and again. First, transparency.
Making things visible.
Exactly. Digitizing records, making processes online like Telangana's Dharani portal aims to do. That reduces the need for face-to-face interaction where demands can happen.
But there are issues there too, right? Glitches, access problems in rural areas.
Yeah, it's not a perfect solution yet. Dharani has had its share of problems, and not everyone in a village has easy internet access or is comfortable using it. So manual processes and the opportunities they present still exist.
Okay, so transparency is one. What else?
Second, stricter laws and enforcement. The Prevention of Corruption Act is there, but cases need to move faster. Justice delayed really is justice denied here. If cases drag on for years, the deterrent effect is lost.
People see offenders getting away with it for ages.
Precisely. Third, back to what we discussed, whistleblower protections. Making them truly robust, legally enforced so people aren't afraid to speak out. That's critical fuel for the ACB.
Makes sense.
Fourth, and this is maybe harder, a cultural shift. Promoting integrity needs to be active. Training, yes, but also visibly rewarding honest officials. Making integrity the expected norm, not the exception that gets you sidelined.
Changing the internal culture.
Yeah. And finally, something directly relevant to Nagarjuna's case. Independent oversight of officials' wealth. How does an MRO amass crores in 6 months?
That shouldn't happen without bells ringing somewhere.
Exactly. As Venkatesh quipped, if a 6-month MRO lives like a movie star, someone's asleep at the wheel. There need to be mechanisms to flag that kind of disproportionate wealth much, much earlier. Independent bodies, maybe.
So a multi-pronged approach, really. Tech, laws, protection, culture, oversight.
It has to be. There's no single silver bullet.
Which brings us right back to where we started. Talakondapally, July 3rd, 2025. That image of firecrackers and cheers. It really was a moment of triumph, wasn't it? A spark of hope. This whole deep dive, it's shown us this intense story of justice finally delivered and a community just refusing to take it anymore. It's a powerful reminder, I think, that even when corruption feels overwhelming, totally entrenched, it's not actually invincible.
No, it's not. And maybe that's the thought to leave everyone with. The ACB's work, catching individuals like Nagarjuna, it's vital, it's commendable, but it often feels like addressing the symptoms, right?
Yeah, the surface level.
The real fight, the long-term war against corruption, that needs sustained effort from everyone. Citizens demanding accountability, like in Talakondapally, honest officials pushing for change from within, policymakers creating and enforcing better systems.
A collective effort.
Exactly. For the people in that village, Nagarjuna's arrest wasn't just an ending, it sparked a dream. A dream of an MRO office where files actually move without needing a bribe, where getting a service is just a right, not something you have to pay extra for.
The way it should be.
The way it absolutely should be. The challenge now, for them and really everywhere, is building that system. A system where integrity, not cash, is the actual currency that makes things work. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What could happen if every community found its voice like Talakondapally did? One complaint, one sting operation, one moment of celebration at a time. What change could that really bring?
A powerful thought to end on.